Welcome to our Can't Keep Silent podcast. We discuss a variety of topics, and although the basis of our discussions are spiritual, we deal with real issues, some controversial, which at some point may apply to all of us in some way, either personally, emotionally, socially, spiritually, culturally, nationally, and even globally. I am your host, Lydia Clark. We are currently in a series called I Overcame It. We will be talking with people who have faced tragic, heartbreaking, or dire circumstances, and God delivered them. This series has a twofold purpose: to encourage others who may be facing the same circumstances and let them know there is hope. If God helped them overcome, He will help you. And we also want to let others know that God is alive and He is concerned about your suffering. We live in a fallen world, so suffering is unavoidable. But the promise we have from God is that He will deliver us. In this series, the people we will interview have been delivered and have overcome. God is not apathetic. He's loving, He's powerful, and nothing is impossible with Him. If you allow Him, He will take your suffering and turn it into something beautiful you never imagined. He's great like that. Our guest, Leslie Jackson, shares her story of overcoming the devastation of being rejected via text by her fiancé 3 months before their scheduled wedding. A lot of us go through heartbreak, devastating heartbreak, and the loss of relationships, and it can affect people for years and affect them to the point where they can't even have relationships, healthy relationships in the future. So I'm thankful for what the Lord did for you and helping you overcome that, and we just want to encourage other people with that. So that being said, why don't you just give us a little backstory on how you met your ex-fiance?
Well, we met in college. He was a year ahead of me, and I had just, seen him around campus. He was well known, and so I usually tend to stay away from well-known people.
Yeah.
But we kept bumping into each other, and so he asked, if you wanted to go out to dinner, and we just were really good friends, and things kind of progressed from there. During that time, he graduated and I still had one more year of school, and in nursing school was just kind of going on about my way. Really hadn't thought about marriage at all because I just was really focusing on school and, just kind of going that way. And I always kind of felt like I wasn't the one that was kind of called to be married. I always kind of felt like I would just be the single auntie that flew around and did different things. I always felt that I was called to like the missions field, medical missions, because of being in the medical field. And just really just kind of here and there, not really settled in one particular place. And,
so being married was not in your vision for your life or anything? Okay.
Not at all. Like my mom used to actually get frustrated with me because I would always say, I don't ever want to get married. I don't ever want to have any kids. And she was like, don't say that because you don't know, what the Lord has for you and you don't want to speak those things into the atmosphere. But I was adamant. I'm good with that.
Really? Was it something that made you feel that way, or it was just an internal thing? Was it something external that happened, you think, or you just always felt that way?
I don't really know if it was anything specific. I do know I came from a very happy home. My parents have been married for 40 years. And so the marriages that I saw were all marriages that had been together for many years and were happy marriages. So I didn't come from a family or a background where you didn't see a lot of people married. I think it was just, I always thought marriage was restricting. And so in order for me to do the things that I wanted to do, what I thought that I wanted to do, I figured being single would be the easiest way because I could go as I wanted to. I wouldn't have the responsibilities of taking care of someone else. Which is totally opposite of what my life is like. So with that so to get to the point to be engaged and have all of that stuff fall apart the way it did, it was like absolutely devastating. So our relationship progressed, and I remember like it was yesterday. My best friend and I were in our last clinical, and we bumped into some people from his church that knew him really well, and they asked me when the wedding date was, and my best friend looked at me like, did you forget to tell me something? And I was like, I have no idea what these people are talking about. And they were saying that, he had been talking to them about getting married. So when I asked him about it, he said yes. And so we began to talk a little bit more about getting married. And in that time frame, he had asked my father for permission, and my father said yes. And he proposed and came up with this big, grand, glamorous proposal. So there were like no flags in my life at that time that was like, this is not the way that you should go. And then it seems like from the engagement, that's when things started to go downhill.
Well, let me ask you this. How did you get from I don't see marriage anywhere in my life to accepting his proposal?
So I think for being in a long-term committed relationship, I was just like, oh, this really isn't that bad. And I had before, but then it was almost like somebody wants to marry me and spend the rest of my life with them, all that. So it went from not ever wanting it to being like the focus that it,
wow.
It just turned on the light switch that I had never really thought was there. And you went from there. So I guess the whole thing with that is like, well, wow. But then as I think back to it, I think part of also wanting to get married came from I had rededicated my life back to the Lord, and I was struggling with the sex before marriage, and I did not want to be out of the will of God. And so we had to fix that. And so if you're married, you don't get into trouble and you don't worry about, sinning. So it was like, okay, this must be what the Lord wants for me. Because I had really been spending time in prayer and asking the Lord, like whatever is in my life that I don't need to be there, begin to remove it and really seeking him for my purpose in life. And so when the marriage proposal came, it was just like, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is going to fix everything. And I think sometimes we struggle when you are single and saved because you're either single and saved and not sinning, or you're single and saved and you're sinning. And a lot of times when you're sinning, you don't want to be, but you're trying to figure out what to do, but you don't want to let go of that relationship as well.
Right.
It seemed like the best way to do it. And now back at it, I think that was really more of the driving force than the wanting to be married.
Wow. Okay. You're just not wanting to sin and disobey God. Okay.
Right. And so from there, like I said, the relationship kind of started to go kind of bad, like, kind of things that I had never really seen before. And he was not a bad person or anything like that. It was just that it just wasn't going the way God had purpose. And I think he was trying to, now looking back at it, I really think God was trying to put things there for me to see and open my eyes to be like, okay, Leslie, this is not it, slow down, those kind of things. Because, once you get the ring, it's like set the date. Go look for flowers, go look for that. It really wasn't anything else. And then I think the biggest mistake that we made was his pastor was like, oh, you guys don't need to do counseling because I know you. And so, counseling there, it was just kind of like, do these worksheets or, those kind of things and kind of go there. Where I think if we probably would have did some premarital counseling or some type of counseling, we may not have even gotten to the point of, starting the date or anything like that.
So once you got engaged, what time frame was the wedding date? When did you plan the actual wedding for once you got engaged?
It was for a year later. It was for like that following August. I want to say everything happened in like 2000 in the winter. Yeah, I think it happened in like 2005. And we were supposed to get married in 2006, but we got engaged like early 2005. So it was about a year later.
Okay. So during that time, you had been planning the wedding, reserving places, the venue, and things like that.
Yeah, doing all the normal bride stuff that you do, going to shows and getting everybody fitted, and just kept moving along with things. We were going to be, he was not from the area, so to move out of state, I was a nurse, so getting my license and everything together to move to California and all kinds of other different things that were going on. So basically life as I had planned and as I had lived kind of went on hold. I would have to say I got proposed and like the Leslie that I was or thought that life was going to be totally went out the window. So it all became about moving, getting married, being someone's wife, not really being me who happens to be somebody's wife. I just kind of lost the Leslie part of it.
Yeah, because you had plans. You had plans before, he came along. You had it all laid out and everything, and you put all of that on hold.
Yes, all of that went out the back burner. And with his career that he had, it was like really specific with what he needed to do. So it all became about helping him to get to that point. And then once that happened, then I would continue. But desires to go to grad school and all that other different stuff, all of that was on hold because I wanted to find a house, I wanted to get married, and I wanted to have children. So that's just how it went from there.
And you were supposed to move to California. He was from California, right? Correct. And you were in Michigan.
Yes, and so we both were in Michigan, but he had gotten a job to go back to California, so we were getting things ready for me to move there. And
so that's a big transition as well. Not only putting your dreams on hold, but actually moving away from like your family and friends, right?
So quitting a stable job at the hospital that I had been at for, years and had seniority in. And, you just kind of look at it like, oh, I'm a nurse. I can go anywhere. It doesn't matter, but those things do matter when you've kind of built a life for yourself and gotten established. So I had canceled my lease. I'd already put in my notice for my job because getting closer and closer to the wedding. And then I would say maybe about the 4 to 6 month mark closer to the wedding, things really started to kind of get shaky. And I think in my heart, I felt a couple of times like, am I sure I want to do this? Are we doing the right thing? And I think he even asked one time, like, do you feel like we're having problems because we're doing the wrong thing? And I was like, well, we can pray about it. And then, you go on and go about your way. And it's like, okay, but you pray, but I don't think we really stopped to listen to what the Lord was saying.
Right.
Because everything that was going on was the Lord talking. We just were not hearing.
You weren't listening.
Right.
It's interesting you say that, because, and I think you'll talk more about this later, but when we are, building up to implement plans that we have and then it just falls apart, then we want to be upset with God, like, God, why did you let this happen? And God is saying, I was trying to show you signs all along the way, but we're just not paying attention because we're focused on this is what we're going to do. The plans are already in motion. And so, we're just going to roll with it. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now, what kind of things can you share? I don't know if you can. What kind of things seem to be going downhill? What kind of problems were you seeing?
Communication problems, just maybe some anger management things that I hadn't noticed before. The biggest issue was I wouldn't just drop everything and move right then and there. And
that's what he wanted you to do?
Yeah, just come on and, forget about everything else. Just come on out here and, we'll just figure it out once you get here. And I was like, well, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I have this lease. I don't want to break the lease. And then we're trying to get a house out there. Those things go on your credit. And I just was trying to be astute about life and be, settled with things. But it always just was a battle. Any little thing would turn into like this big, huge mountain of an argument. And it shouldn't have been that way. And so it was part of that being young because we were in our early 20s and then just, not really knowing how to communicate. And I think, like I said, that not going through premarital counseling probably definitely was a big thing because we didn't really know how to argue or didn't really know how to disagree without it being like a big, huge fight. But then you look at some things as well. There was no abuse there or anything like that, but you just kind of like, some things that were said were kind of demeaning and it kind of, kind of chips away at you and your esteem with different things, or it'll open a door of something that might have happened a long time ago and it kind of reminds you of that again.
Right.
Or just always feeling maybe like not good enough. I always kind of felt like I was always working to make sure that I was that girl that he desired or that girl that, he was going to end up being with. So
yeah, well, you mentioned that, when you were saying that you had to put yourself on hold, and I think that's a big sign right there. Right. When you have to basically change everything, who you are and whatever to please someone else, like you said, you lose yourself and that's not healthy. That can't be good in a marriage, but we make those sacrifices. I know now your reasoning was kind of different. You really wanted to please God, but there are some people, who get into marriage and lose who they are to please someone because they just want to have someone, and they want to have that person regardless of the cost. But then when you get married, it's a high price. It's a high price to pay that wears thin really quickly. And, you know, I'm glad you talked about premarital counseling, because some people think, you know, I got this, you know, we're fine. We don't need premarital counseling, but it is so crucial to get that counseling and to get that third person to look in, because sometimes we can't see, but a counselor can see, you know, I think this might be a problem later on. So even with that, I'm sure you would, and I do, to encourage people to get that premarital counseling. All right, I'm sorry. So go ahead on with the story.
So there just began to be some other strange things that were happening, and it just seemed like the conversations would be distant or not coming to visit us often, or me trying to get out there, something would always come up, flights getting canceled. It was just like really weird. And so I actually thought about it some more when I was praying about how to do the interview. I told my mother I had a dream, and I was like, I dreamed it was my wedding and Dad was walking me down the aisle, but I never made it down the aisle. Every time I could hear the music, I could see the church, I could see inside the church, and it almost was like it was a church that had multiple hallways. But every time we tried to go like down the hallway to get to the aisle, it would be a block, and then I would have to turn around and go another way. And I totally blew that dream off, like something I had ate, like this or whatever. Or then, you know, I do sometimes the church seem to do is I begin to let's rebuke the devil and all this other different stuff, but it wasn't the devil. And so maybe a couple of weeks after that, I just was on my way to our church for Good Friday service, and my cell phone, never will forget it, I had T-Mobile, so the T-Mobile jingle went off for a text message. I picked up the phone after I parked the car in the church parking lot, and there was a text message that says, there's no easy way to say this, but I just need to go ahead and be honest. I don't love you. I don't want to get married. You know, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's how I found out that the wedding was called off.
Oh my goodness.
I sat in the church parking lot and just fell apart. And I called my mother and told her what was going on. And she said, her and my dad was furious. She left him at home, and her and my sisters came up immediately. They lived about 3 hours away. So I went ahead, and she told me to go home, and I told her, no, I'm going to go in the service. So I wiped my face and got it together and went into the service. And our pastor preached probably one of the most powerful sermons I had ever heard about being in the place, like being in the place where God wanted you to be. And how he preached about Rehoboth. That's what he was preaching about.
Okay.
And so he was just talking about how when you're in the place where you were supposed to be, and in that place, there's no strife, there's no fighting there. And it just really began to be like, I didn't want to hear that, because I was like, no, I'm going to fight for my life. And, you know, so I went on home and dealt with the situation, and then finally talked to him on the phone with my parents there. His parents wanted to be more hands-off with it because they felt we were adults and that we would figure it out, and that was fine. But my dad and mom were more involved because it is 3 months before the wedding.
Oh, 3 months.
Yeah, it's about 3 to 4 months before the wedding. Invitations are out, dresses are bought. Like,
wow.
It's outdone. And I only have 6 weeks until I'm not supposed to be at my job or supposed to be out of my house. So we're trying to figure out what I need to do right away. And
well, who paid for all of this up to this point?
Me and my mom and dad.
Oh my gosh. So you had like a serious investment in this wedding, more so than he did. Well, let me just say this about him texting you. You know, first of all, it's horrible that he did that through a text. I'm sure we could all agree on that. And then it's another horrible thing to say the wedding is canceled. But I think the most devastating thing to me would be, I don't love you.
Right. I don't want to be with you.
Yeah, I don't want to be, because it's not like, okay, let's just postpone the wedding, or I'm not ready right now or something. But it's like, I just don't want to be with you. That's horrible. That would be devastating for me. How did that impact you?
I say that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That took me to a real dark, low place, because dealing with the whole thing, it always felt like it was something wrong with me. Like, why not me? Why didn't you choose me? What did I do wrong? those types of things, and that I don't want to be with you. Well, why not? Like, I'm putting everything on hold and all those other different things to be there. And then you look at all the sacrifices, and in relationships, everybody makes sacrifices or different things like that. But there was a chance that I had to go to a hospital locally that would have paid for me to go to school. And the thing with that was we would have had to live in Michigan for 3 years after I finished school. And I remember that conversation really well. And he was like, I'm not staying in the snow. Like, I'm not doing that or whatever. So it was like some of those things I look at, like I let go and didn't do other relationships that, close friends that you with, because sometimes when women are in relationships, we forget who we are and who our friends are because we just so with our boo, those relationships that suffered because of those kind of things. And and I felt embarrassed, like, okay, how do I go and, tell all these people? So as I'm calling and I'm canceling things, people were so supportive. It seemed like everybody would say the same thing. It's best that it happened this way. It's best that it happened now because you don't want to get married and then go through a divorce. And the one lady, when I called to get the deposit back from the church, because it was not going to be at our church, because our church was booked for something that weekend. Or, our pastor was going to be in Africa.
Okay.
That's why we weren't going to be able to use our church. And she said, oh, the groom had already called and canceled it. So the wedding was canceled. And I was like, oh, really? And so she was like, yeah, your check should be coming in the mail soon. So he had already called and canceled the church. I had no clue that any of that had happened.
Oh, wow.
Like, you go on past all of that, and you can point fingers or different things like that and be like, oh, somebody's such a horrible person. And it's not even that. It's just that just wasn't God's will, not only for me, but for him either. He would have been married to somebody who probably had a whole bunch of gifts and talents and is bitter later because everything's, there. And I would have been married to somebody who probably would have been stifled a little bit because I'm trying to go one way or another way. Because at the end of the day, he's God's child just like I am. And he cares for both of us, and that's why he wouldn't let it be. But I think even though that hurt came and could have been the thing that made me hate people, hate men, hate anybody, be not trusting, God used it to really shape my purpose and to make me get into a place where I would seek him. And I went from just knowing God to really having a relationship with God. I knew who God was, and I grew up in church and everything, but then my relationship with him changed because I was in such a place of hurt. I stayed in his presence, prayed, and I was fasting that my fiance would change his mind. All those things.
Oh, were you really?
Right.
So you hadn't let go of that relationship.
My prayer life and my fasting life became much stronger because I knew how to go to war. I just didn't know that I was training for something else. I'm, learning to fast and pray, trying to get one thing to happen. But I was just like, okay, you just go ahead right on and you do that. And we're just going to use that later, that you'll be skilled in that area. So if you need to fast about something else, pray about something else, you can. And I think the biggest thing was being mad at God. I think I was more mad at God than I was at anybody because I felt like, God, how could you let this happen to me? I'm trying to do the right thing and I'm trying to, live for you, and marriage is this. And, we both go to church and he loves the Lord and I love the Lord. And, why? And God reminded me, well, when you guys met, that wasn't your prayer. You didn't pray for a husband. And it came back to me as clear as day. I remembered the prayer. I prayed for two things. I prayed for a really close friend that was a girl that we could hang out, and that she was saved and I was saved, and she would be my prayer partner. And then I also prayed for the Lord to bless me with some companionship. I was like, I'd like to hang out sometimes. I would really like to have a saved boyfriend. And that's what he reminded me. You prayed for a boyfriend. You didn't pray for a husband. You took it there. And so it was like, God, that's not what I wanted to hear, those kind of things. But just being mad at God, because I felt like God let me down, but he didn't. It was just that he was trying to tell me I wasn't hearing, but I felt like I shouldn't even had to go through that. Like, God, you're supposed to let me know. So we weren't even supposed to get to this point if I wasn't supposed to get married. But I think if I wouldn't have got to that point, the brokenness that I experienced, I would have never experienced it. And out of that, I would have never became the person that I am now.
Wow, that is so deep. First of all, okay, it's interesting to me that you said that, you had really drawn closer to God, because you spent more time with him because you were so broken. But in the midst of that, you were also angry, with God. And that, I mean, that is something, because most people, when they're angry with God, they turn away. They don't want to spend time with him, they're just upset. But you turn to him, which I think that's what true relationship is. It's like, I don't abandon you when things don't go the way I think. We work it out.
Mhm.
And that's a true relationship that you had with God, that you may not understand. I may be upset, but Lord, I'm sticking here with you. I want to understand more, because I don't know. Again, one of the whole reasons for doing these broadcasts, these podcasts and videos is because people think that God is apathetic, that he just lets stuff happen because he doesn't care about us, or he only cares about the big things. He doesn't care about my relationships, but he cares about every little thing.
Right.
and
He
and the
does.
truth is that he did give you signs along the way, to let you know that this isn't it. But again, we ignore those signs. And so I love how God brought that back to your remembrance. That helped. What other kind of things that happened in your healing process that you saw God do to help you through the process of healing and getting over that?
I found that God sometimes will bring stuff back around people, back in your presence, or things that would kind of bring back those memories to kind of see. I felt like he did that to kind of see if I was really progressing the way I thought I was progressing.
Mm-hmm.
It came a time where my ex came back into my life for a little while, and it was just kind of seeing, how those things would work, and it didn't work. And then when he got married, like 2 years later, to a family friend, oh,
Oh,
that opened up a whole Pandora's box. I was just like,
oh,
okay, God, I'm still paying bills from this. And,
oh,
he
wow.
done got married, like he going on with his life, like that's not fair. And, why
Mm-hmm.
her and not me? And, so it just kind of took you all the way back to it. But then I took advantage of our church's healing and deliverance. I also sought out books. I looked at books, Christian books that I could read to deal with hurt. And then one of
Mm-hmm.
the biggest things that I did was I journaled. I journaled a lot. I journaled regularly. And it
Okay.
was a way for me to really talk about my feelings, say what I wanted to say, yell at God if I wanted to in there, and then answer it. And then I went back one time and reread those, and I was like, boy, I was all jacked up. But I would be like yelling in one part, and then the next page I would be like, "When I'm pushing through anyhow," or those kind of things. And I think that was important because a lot of times we just suppress things and we don't get it out.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you
Yes.
do it with an actual counselor where you're talking it out, or you're journaling and you're doing that too. I did talk with my pastor some for counseling, but honestly, I really feel like just spending time with the Lord. I couldn't listen to secular music during that time because I would just bawl about any love song, or because I just felt like it's never going to happen for me. Life is over.
Mm.
Why am I falling apart like this? Because I didn't want this in the first place.
Isn't that something?
Oh, it went from something I
Yeah.
wanted to just be like, how could this not happen for me? Like, what's wrong with me? And even
Mm-hmm.
if it's not a failed marriage, or if it's not a failed relationship with like the opposite sex, even in that, it affected my relationships with other people because the trust them, the guard was automatically up. See how it is. It was even like that with the church, because when I started going to the church at the time, I was only planning on being there for just a little bit. So people were like, oh, Sister Leslie, do you want to work on this ministry or that ministry? And I'm like, I don't know, y'all. Like, I really don't even really want to be here. Like, I'm trying to go to California, So I was always trying to be in a temporary state so I couldn't get too attached to people. And I think it was a mechanism for me to protect my heart that was broken. But
Wow.
like I said, and that's why it doesn't matter if it's a failed relationship. It could be something that happened at work, or something that happened with a good girlfriend, a childhood friend, all those things, because you go through the grief process of that. because literally you lose that dream or that vision that you had for that relationship. And then you have to figure out what life is going to be like now that that part isn't there. So if you don't go through all those stages, the anger, the, the healing, the acceptance, all those different things, then you'll just continue to carry that. And it'll be toxic to you when you do meet the person that you're supposed to be with, or meet another friend who just, or people that just really want to love you and want to be a part of your life. You can't open up to that because you're so guarded from what happened so many years ago. And I think, I can't remember if it was you or one of the other missionaries at my church was like, at some point, you kind of have to think about it. You're still here in this spot, and he's going on with his life. Like, he's married, he's got children, those kind of things, and you're still mad about what happened. So at some point, you're going to have to forgive and let go. And when you forgive, that doesn't always mean that you forget, the full all of those things, but it does mean that I'm going to let go of the consequences that I feel that you should pay for what you did to me.
That's right.
And a lot of times people don't think about that. That's what forgiveness is, because that's what God did for us. Even though we did those things, the consequences that we should have, which is death, Jesus already paid that for us. So when we forgive other people, okay, the hurt that I want you to feel because of how you hurt me, I'm going to let that go. And I'm just going to go on with my life. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be best friends and that you're going to be over the house. But the consequence that I want you to pay, you no longer have to pay that because I let it go.
That's good. And people have to understand that forgiveness is a choice that you make.
Right.
You made that. It's not a feeling. It's not like I feel like I can forgive you or I feel like I forgive you. It's just a decision that you make that I'm going to release you from the debt I feel like I'm owed from you, whatever that debt is. And that is a big part of healing. You really can't heal because unforgiveness keeps you stuck because you feel like you have an outstanding debt and you just can't move past it. You can't move past it. And but it's interesting how that, it was a death of a vision, but God did resurrect your vision, right?
He did.
For being married. And so just for the healing process, though, so what you did was you journaled and you were able to express yourself. Do you feel like God was like bent out of shape because you were yelling at him and telling him how you really felt?
I can't remember the exact scripture, but I know it's in Psalms. There's two scriptures in Psalms. There's one where the psalmist says, like, I almost had, it's almost like he's saying, like, when he looked at how the wicked was prospering, like, he almost just, like, he just almost lost it. Yeah. And then there's another scripture in there where it talks about how he knows like how I feel already. And in the Message Bible, it kind of paraphrases it as like, he knows how I feel already. So he wants honesty above sacrifice. Like he just wants me to be honest. So he already knows how I felt anyway.
That's true. That's true.
I was acknowledging it. So you can walk around and act like you're okay, but God already knows your heart.
He knows. He knows it's in there.
Yeah, so I learned, and I think that was really helpful because even in life now when things don't go away, I'm honest with God, like, God, I do not like this. I do not understand why you chose to go that way. I didn't want it to go that way, but nevertheless, you're sovereign, and I trust that even though you made that decision or you allowed this to happen, that you're going to get me through. And so I think I learned that lesson first there, and so now when other things have come up, I've been able to apply it there. And so I don't think he was bent out of shape about it. I think he just was like, okay, you just hold tight. I'll show you how it all works out a little bit later. And he's okay with that.
Yeah, because he understands we are human. If you read through the Psalms, you can see in different places where King David, who, was so close to God, where David would just go on a rant, and it's like, God, why have you forsaken me? And, this, that, the other thing. And then the next, he'll come up with a phrase like, yet I will praise you. I will yet praise you, God. And so that's why I love this relationship with God. He's so not like people portray him to be, like he's so angry up there in heaven and he's just waiting to crush us if we do something or say the wrong thing. He knows how we are, and he's patient with us and he lets us get our, whatever out. And then he just deals with us accordingly. I love that kind of God. I love that he's like that and he has that kind of relationship with us, you know. And so through your healing process, you journaled and then you went through inner healing and deliverance, right?
Right.
And through the process, God was also showing you things, how it does work together, because you said that experience made you better.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right? How did God use that experience? Because he's so good. He turns negative things around for good. How did he turn that into good for you?
I think one of the things that he did was he gave me a fierceness in prayer. And like I said, I'm sitting there learning to fast and pray because I'm hoping somebody would change their mind. But now, if we're in the middle of a battle or our friends in the middle of a battle, it's like, all right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Let's attack it in the spirit. So I really began, I think I was like in a learning phase of how to do spiritual warfare. And I just didn't know what it was or what that looked like or what that meant. And so that was kind of the beginning of that. Also, the other thing with that is he took all that stuff that I kind of threw on the side, and he took that and kind of put that one way, and the brokenness that I had, it was almost like he was like, now I have you in a raw state and I can take you in the direction that I want to take you in. Not the direction you thought you were going to go in, not the direction you thought he was going to take you in, but the direction that I want to take you in.
Wow. Woo, that is so good. So he used it, I don't want to say to break you down, but just to kind of get you to surrender.
Right.
Your plans.
Right.
For his plans. Isn't it something that, God has to do what he has to do. And not that he did that to you, but he'll take it.
He'll take it
and he'll use it to get you right where you need to be.
Right. We like to use that scripture a lot, it works out for the good. But we just want it to be that something good happened and therefore it's for his glory. But he'll take the bad stuff in your life, the stuff that really hurts you, and it'll be like, okay, we'll use this as the launching pad to get you to where you need to go. And so sometimes, going to that low space and those dark spaces, it helped me to be able to relate to my patients who might be in a bad situation, a deep situation, not knowing, how to deal with those kind of things, and even dealing with depression and those kind of, the seasonal things or the traumatic things that people go through. So it kind of helped with my professional career as well. But it definitely took my life in a different direction. I never did become a travel nurse and fly all over the world.
Not yet.
Long places on vacations and different things, but it definitely refocused my life because I was just like, I just need to find purpose. I just need to find purpose. And one night I couldn't sleep and I was online and a pop-up came for the University of Michigan's grad school open house for nurse practitioners. And I was like, I guess I'll go to this and see what it's like. And the door was locked. And when I got there, couldn't get in the door. And this lovely lady comes and opens the door. And so she opens the door and she's talking to me as she's walking in. I had no clue who this woman was. And so she's just asking me about myself and different things like that. And so she asked me, was I interested in being a nurse practitioner? And I was like, well, I thought about it. But, I'm not really sure. And so she just asked me a little bit more. And she's like, I really feel like that's, you're called to do that. And so I said, well, I've looked at it, but I'm just not sure. I don't really know if I have the money and, I don't know when your deadline is. And so she said, well, are you interested in the program? I said, well, I guess if there's a spot. So she told me to apply. And then as I got ready to go and have a seat because the dean of the school was going to be coming up to say something, they called the dean of the school up and it was the woman who had opened the door. And so
she opened the door,
exactly.
Literally and spiritually, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I had been sitting there talking to the dean for a good 20 minutes and never knew. And so when we walked out, she was like, now I'll be looking for your application because I think we might still have a couple more spots. And I did apply. And I asked the Lord, I was like, if this is for me, then you're going to open up the door. And I got the last spot because somebody dropped out. And I was able to start school. And all of this stuff happened in like May. So August, when I was supposed to be getting married, I started grad school and became a nurse practitioner. And life just kind of took off from there. Other relationships as far as making new friends and being in places I never really thought I would have been able to be in. Going to the school I always dreamed of going to, but I was just like, oh, I can't afford it. I'll never get in. I don't know why I didn't think I'd get in. I had like straight A's in high school. But, it's just some of those things that you really I lacked confidence in different things and who I was and what I could do. Those abilities that I had, I would just kind of be like, it's okay. Nobody really cares about those kind of things. But God used that situation to literally put me on the path of where he wanted me to go. And the rest is history.
That is awesome. And so then did the desire to get married come back?
Like maybe a few years down the road, because it was like, everybody's asking, when you gonna get married? When you gonna have kids? And you're like, okay, Lord, I'm 31, I'm 32, 33. Okay, well, maybe I do want to get married. But then I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm okay with that. And I don't have to get married. But I think some of that comes with, you see lack of prospects and things just don't start to be kind of going the way you thought they would go. And you're not really meeting people who that love the Lord the way you do and love the interests, some of the interests that you have as well. So I'm like, man, I'm okay. I never really wanted to get married in the first place. So, you just kind of go on with that. And then, but my mother began to pray because she asked me, what was it that I really desired? And I was like, I haven't quite figured out how to be a mom but not get married yet. And she was like, well, they don't go, well, I guess you could, but that's not how the Lord wants you to do it. They don't go like that. And so the desire was more to be a mother than it was to be a wife. And I was just like, well, no, I'm okay with it. And then my husband came.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so now you're married?
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
It'll be 5 years in September, so we've been married for 4 years.
And you have a son?
Yes, we have a 1-year-old son who's a handful.
But you love it, don't you? I'm sure you do.
Every moment of it. And honestly, I used to always kind of get bent out of shape because, I was older, getting married, and older having my son. So a lot of times I kind of felt like, God, I'm so behind everybody else. But then I always just kind of rested knowing I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And when my son got dedicated, one of the ladies that spoke over his life said he had to come later because of what he was called to do in the earth. So my delay wasn't really a delay. It was destiny's date. And so it was just like, wow, I hadn't thought about that. I just thought I was old, getting married, and old, having a kid. But
wow.
It was.
You don't.
Yes.
That is revelation. That brought tears to my eyes. Like right now, I just want to fall out and cry because we don't, and I've said this before, Ecclesiastes 3 says that there's a time to every purpose. And that even when Jesus came, he came in the fullness of time. He was born when he was supposed to be born. And so thinking about, your son, wow, that God had a time for him to come.
Right.
It was a specified time for him to be there. And your life worked out, not just for you, but for the timing of your seed.
Right.
That right there is like, wow, God, that just blows your mind. That is so good. So yeah, because it's not, oh Lord, you know how I feel about birthing babies and all that kind of stuff, but it's not always about us.
Right.
It's not always about us. God is a generational God, and he's not thinking about just you. And this is what I heard a woman say, and I'm going to interject that right here because I think it's appropriate. Last year, I heard a woman say this, a minister, and it just shed new light on Romans 8, where God works all things together for good for those who love him. And she said, what you have to remember is God is not just working out things that are for you, but he's working out all things.
Right.
All things. And we relate that just to all things in our life.
Right.
But it's not just about us. He's looking at the big picture and those around us and things happening around us. And he's going to work all of those things together for good. And so, yeah, even with your son, it was his time. Mm-hmm. And so your life, that vision had to be on hold so that he could come in the fullness of his time. That's just awesome. That is just awesome right there, Leslie. What an awesome testimony that is. And I'm just grateful that you were able to hear God and see him working through the whole thing. You know, when we're going through stuff, we can't see the whole picture. All we see is what we're going through, right?
Exactly.
And so one reason for doing these videos is to let people see, if you just hold on, if you just wait, God will show you how it works together for good. So let me ask you this final question, and then you can share, because I want you to share something with people who may be dealing with things similar,
Okay.
to what you're going through. But what is like one of the main things that you learned about God through this whole, situation?
I think the biggest thing that I learned about God in this situation is God's timing and his love for you. And I think, and now that I'm a mom, I understand that love thing even more. And because a lot of times we think when you talk about God's love, that everything is happy-go-lucky, but there is correction comes with that too. And it's also, there are things that you want, but God loves you enough to know that that's not going to be good for you, so you can't have it, and you can't have it right then and right now, and because you can't handle it, or if you do have it, it might destroy something that you might do in your future. Wow. And so sometimes we look at relationships when they fail, and it's like, you're just looking at that person or that, and sometimes it's just a matter of, maybe it's not, God was showing me that everybody doesn't have a purpose in your life long term. Things are seasonal, and because he's a seasonal God, seasons change, different things like that. And so his timing became even more apparent to me, because his timing, I think I got a whole nother view of one day being much longer in God's eyesight than mine. Because from the time of that happening to the time that I got married, it was almost 10 years. So just walking through that process. And so sometimes God's process for you isn't short. Sometimes it takes a while, and you just have to endure and go through the process, because at the end, the Bible says that you'll come out as pure gold. You might have to go through the fire for a little while, but if you just stay where you're supposed to, you'll get to where you need to be, as long as you stay on the path that he has you. But when God loves you, he not only loves you, he not only showers you with gifts and, good things, and it says he satisfies our mouths with good things, but he also chastens those who he loves. So when you're out of line, out of order, doing things that, are not supposed to be there, are not supposed to be in your life, sometimes things happen as a wake-up call, or to correct you, so you can get back to where you need to be.
That's love. That's what a parent does. Mm-hmm. When a parent loves their child, they will correct them. They will discipline them, so to keep them from being hurt.
Exactly.
So are there any other final words you want to share with someone who may be listening to this and dealing with that kind of heartbreak or situation?
I think the biggest thing is to take your heart out of your hands and give it to the Lord. Because when we deal with things out of our emotions or out of our own strength, then we tend to tear them up even more. And so if you went through that, take your time and heal, because a lot of times we jump from one relationship to the next. And we're trying to heal, but then you take baggage, and then you hurt other people. And so then other people are getting hurt, and then everybody's just dealing with all of their issues. But if you're kind of going through that situation now with a breakup, a dissolved relationship, take your time and let yourself heal. If you need to work it out with a counselor, do that, but definitely take it to the Lord in prayer, and take your heart out of your hands and give it to him, because he will lead you in the direction that you need to go, so that you can heal the way you need to heal, and that you can ultimately receive the love and the relationship that you desire from the right person.
That is so good. Well, thank you for sharing your testimony with us. We really appreciate. I was encouraged by it. I mean, I think you can apply to more than just what you went through, but so many different situations. God is the same, and that was really good. So thank you, Leslie, and God bless you and your family. May you continue to walk in the purpose that God has for you, and see it unfold in front of your eyes more and more every day as your family grows, in God. And you just be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ecclesiastes 4:7 says the end of a thing is better than the beginning. And the rest of the verse talks about patience. You may be facing a hard situation, but know this: if it is not better, it is not the end. Just be patient. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." I know that God has a calling on your life, and if you love him, he will work all things together for your good. If you know someone who is struggling as a result of tragedy, please share this recording with them. I believe it will instill hope and faith in God for victory over their circumstances. Always remember that God loves you and you are his heart. Only he can turn the tests in your life into testimonies. Just open your heart to him and allow Jesus to become Lord of your life. He will make you an overcomer too. Thank you for listening to Can't Keep Silent and this installment in our series. Please leave a comment or send us an email at lydia@can'tkeepsilent.com or visit us on Facebook at Can't Keep Silent.